Hello, and welcome to First Second Sketch School. I am Ben Hatke. You might know me from the Zeta the Space Girl graphic novels, Mighty Jack. I also create picture books, and my most recent one was Julia's House Moves On. It's Further Adventures of Julia from Julia's House for Lost Creatures. So I thought, since this is the one that's on my mind right now, I thought it might be fun to take a look at how to draw Julia and also share some thoughts with you about character creation and what goes into creating dynamic characters on a page. So let's get started. All right, here we go. I've got my paper, I've got my various pens and pencils. We're going to keep things really simple today. Normally, and we're going to do this time, I start with some very light guidelines, and these I put down with a 4H pencil, which is one of the hardest graphites that you can of the regular pencils that you can get, but I'm worried that we won't see the guidelines very well. Usually I put those down and I'll erase them at the end. But for today I'm going to put down my guidelines with this brown Crayola colored pencil, and that will help us see what goes on underneath the drawing, so to speak. So I usually start with just some really loose lines, definitely a circle to start with if I'm doing a character. It seems like all characters can come from a circle. Julia herself, she has round features coming up, and I'll give us a little guideline for the head and for the eyes and maybe the center line of the head. Julia has a nice swoopy round nose. Her eyes are cheerful. And then one thing I think about with characters is that they all have sort of their own body language, and they all stand differently, and that's even if you have the same way of doing eyes or the same way of creating faces, one of the things that will differentiate one character from another is the way they stand and the way they move. I'm a big fan these days of Julia ties her hair back with a bandana here. I'm a big fan these days of undulating lines, like this, as we call them in the business, wiggles. So I like lines that go like this. There we go. Give her a collar here, and she usually wears around the house. She's got sort of a work apron because she loves to be out in her shop. She loves making things. So we'll take her down about this far. We'll take her down to about like there. You always think, like, different people have different ways of standing. So this is how Julia mostly stands, hands on her hips, behind her apron, maybe her pocket in front so she can always get to her tools. And I like to mimic, one thing I like to do is mimic the movements of her hair with the movements maybe of the hem of her dress. So we'll do that. So anyway, so this is, here we have we have Julia under drawing, and I'm going to ink over this. Now normally I use a variety of pens and pencils. I'll use this something like a brush pen, or this kind of brush pen. This is like the Pentel brush pen. Makes a nice line. For today, and I do a lot of work with the Micron pens because they're very, very permanent. You can erase over them and they're not going to come up. Today, though, we're going to go with an old favorite, the Sanford Sharpie. Good for putting lines down fast and not being too overly fussy about your drawing. So we get this. Get her smile coming up here. Now, one little trick we can use to get a little bit extra three-dimensionality in here is just put a little shadow under the chin. That'll give us a slight more sense. One other thing I think about with characters like this is, especially if they're a character in a comic or a picture book, a character that has to show up quite a few times through the course of the book, you want to look at character design that you can reproduce over and over again. Julia's got a lot going on, but at the base of it all, is a character and some shapes that are, easy to find again, easy to reproduce again. You can hear the rooster outside. So she's got wild hair, That can be different every time, but it's kind of based on the same lines. And just kind of move a little quicker as we go. There's our apron. I feel like Julia has a different sets of aprons, but sometimes I think she's one of her favorite ones is the heart apron. And here's her dress swooping back behind. Give it a little bit of a hem. Sometimes we can add lines like this to give a little bit more of that three-dimensionality to it. And just the suggestion of her hand there. And there we go. There we've got, don't forget our eyebrows. We've got Julia. Sometimes I put a couple little extra marks around her cheeks. A little blush around her cheeks. And there we go. There we have Julia from Julia's House for Lost Creatures. Yeah, and reproducing a character, I think that's an important part of character design. Being able to figure out, and the only way to get to do that is to draw the character over and over and over again, many times in your notebook, and that's where you'll find out. That's where you'll discover by repetition how your character moves, how your character behaves on the page, and then they become to look more like themselves, and little surprises will happen along the way. So there we go. And I will sign my work. There we go. So thank you guys very much for following along, drawing a picture of Julia.